Hello, my name is Kevin. I'm an alcoholic. Thanks for having me Friday night in the room with a bunch of drunks. Except there's no alcohol. You know what I mean? If there was alcohol involved, you guys probably wouldn't want to hang around with me. You know, and I'm sure there's some of you out there that I wouldn't want to be around either. So yeah, a little short notice. Me and my buddy were contemplating on where to go tonight for a meeting, and then my sponsor sends me a text, hey, would you like to share at a meeting? And it's, I hear a lot of people say they don't like to come up here, they don't like to speak in front of groups. I'm good for about 5 minutes. So this is a little different. So I said, sure, I'll do it. And then, the secretary sent me a message, and I asked for the address, and he goes, well, it's a speaker meeting. And I go, yeah, but I was thinking speaker discussion. I wasn't thinking. And then he laid it on me, that it's 40 minutes long, and you get to talk into a microphone, and you're being recorded, and you're making CDs, and I'm like, whoa, hold on here. I didn't sign up for all this. But you know what? That's not any reason whatsoever to say no to Alcoholics Anonymous. The things that I do around here, sharing in meetings, going to meetings, being of service, it all keeps me sober, man, and it's well worth it. Anything that I do for my recovery is I get so much out of it. It is so worth it for me. So you guys get the long version, right? So I was born. I was born here in Santa Rosa. My parents had 4 kids. I'm the baby boy. In between me and my next youngest sister is 13 years. So I was kind of an accident, and so I kind of grew up as an only child in the house. And my mom, I seen her drink one time at my graduation. She had a couple glasses of champagne, and I've never seen her smoke or drink or hardly cuss for that matter. My dad, on the other hand, drove truck, and he used to pop those bennies, stay up for days driving the truck. And I heard stories about his drinking and his pill popping and stuff, because by the time I was 7, he had, it talks about it in the book, we could have those life-changing things happen to us, and we could stop. Well, he had a heart problem, and when I was 7, he had to go have heart surgery. And it was when they were putting using pig valves. So he got a pig valve put in his heart, and he started going to church. That was his solution. He started going to church, and I come from a long line of churchgoers. I got and my grandpa was a preacher, my uncle's a preacher, I got a couple cousins that are preachers, and growing up, my whole family was just totally involved in the church. Was like the youth pastor, the deacon, and pretty much the whole church was my family. My dad had 13 brothers and sisters, man, and I've got a lot of cousins, man, and we all went to church together. And I can remember going to church. I was comfortable there because I was around my family, and I knew everybody. Everybody knew me. We all pretty much got along. And if you didn't get along, you had to take the long walk to the back of the church. And hopefully they made a right-hand turn and took you into the bathroom, because then it wasn't going to be too bad. But if they took you all the way outside, you were getting a beat down. And so, like I said, in church, I got along with everybody and knew everybody. But school was a totally different situation for me. I had this, coming to these rooms and working on myself. I found out that I had this big cloud around me that was fear. I was fear of talking to people, of meeting new people, of me saying something to you and you laughing at me, or pointing your finger at me, or us not getting along, and I was never like this mean person that came across mean to people. But when I first came into the rooms, that's how people perceived me, because I had these walls built up of fear that I didn't want to go introduce myself and shake your hand. I'd rather just sit in the back with my arms crossed, and that's something I found out about myself, through coming to these rooms. So in school, wasn't really getting along too good. So I got a sober date of 6/8/14. So I'm coming up on 3 years, and I had a little 9-year stretch, and then I turned 10 years old, and that's when it took off for me. Some of the kids in my court, they were smoking some stuff, man, and I tried it, and it kind of made me fit in with them. So that's when it started, man. Slowly but surely. I'm going to school, and not really fitting in unless I'm like getting loaded with these guys, that I'm kind of fitting in a little bit. And I go to junior high school, and I'm really not fitting in, man. I'm just totally uncomfortable. So at that young age, I try to do a geographic, you know what I mean? I'm not going to go to the high school all these people are going to. I'm going to go across town and go to high school and see what happens over there, man. But the same thing happened, that wall of fear was still around me. I still wasn't introducing myself to people, and I just thought that magically people were going to just be my friend, without putting any effort towards it. And it never happened, But so when I got to high school, man, I got involved in sports, which helped. I played football, so when I put my football helmet on, I was a part of at least that group for that amount of time, While I had my helmet on, I got treated like everybody else, And didn't really have any major drinking problems through high school, just the regular parties and stuff. Was really kind of focused on my ambitions in life, what I was going to do when I got out of high school, playing football, things like that. And had taken the courses, I knew I wanted to be in construction when I was in high school. I knew I wanted to build houses, and so I took like the wood shop class and the little architect class, and I was preparing for my life, and things were normal, I guess. And then I got out of high school and got my first construction job, and man, I found this thing called alcohol for real on a daily basis. And man, I could remember. So the guy that I get a job with is kind of like, so my brother-in-law at the time, it's one of his in-laws, right? So that's how I met the guy. And the guy was a construction alcoholic, crazy guy, man. It was crazy. I could remember my first job in construction. I was a drunk driver. I would go pick him up, and I would drive him around while he drank all day. You know what I mean? We would go from bar to job site, checking on the crew, cashing checks, throwing money around, shooting pool, playing dice. And I thought, my God, this is great. This is the best job ever. You know what I mean? Fresh out of high school doing this. I'm getting into bars. I'm only 18 years old. I had a little mustache going on then. And but some of the bars we were going to, there wasn't like a bouncer IDing people at the front door. You know what I mean? There was like a couple of old people sitting in the corner, and the bartender was really old, and that's how it started off, man. I was a drunk driver, and I could remember picking him up at like 5 o'clock in the morning, 5:30 in the morning, and him sitting at the kitchen table with the coffee cup, and you knew if you were going to work or to the bar on what was in the coffee cup. If it was beer, you were going to the bar. If it was coffee, you were going to the job site. So that's how I got introduced to alcohol, man, and I loved it. It was great, and had a lot of good times, had a lot of fun. Very little consequences. Wasn't really getting in trouble, man. Because for me, my alcohol use, I loved it so much that I didn't want to get into that big time trouble to where they took it away from me. Where I had to go like do 6 months in jail. Man, I don't want to lose out on 6 months of drinking. This is too fun out here, So I'm working with this guy, and it's just a daily, like every day is like Friday night, Saturday night. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what day of the week it is. And so I do something really, really smart at this point. I marry his daughter. Yeah. Because she is broke into the alcoholic lifestyle. You know what I mean? She doesn't ask where I've been, what I'm doing. I'm with your dad. I'm getting your dad out of the bar. You know what I mean? Don't worry, I'm with your dad. And that excuse was golden. And yeah, we'll get to the end of that relationship here in a minute. But so this went on for a while, man, and I finally get my first taste of AA through a drunk driving. I could remember, you remember the really bad things that happened to you in life, and I could remember this first DUI just like it was yesterday. I was leaving the Ponderosa on Santa Rosa Avenue, and I wasn't even that drunk because I was on other substances, you know what I mean? So here I am, I'm good. So I go to the store and get a burrito, and I leave the store, and he lights me up, and there was no fear whatsoever because, I'm not drunk. You know what I mean? Because I know what it is to be drunk, and I don't feel drunk. So they take me down to the station, man. I blow like a .21 or something like that. And yeah, maybe I am a little drunk. So I get my first taste of AA, right? And come to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And man, I could just remember after every meeting going and getting a beer. I would have to stay sober that day so I could show up to the meeting sober. But I knew as soon as the meeting was over, I had to have a beer, And looking back, I don't remember anything at all about getting a sponsor, working my steps, getting in contact with a higher power. I don't remember hearing any of that. I just remember hearing the war stories, and a couple of the DUI classes that I was going to. I remember they were saying, like in some countries, if you get caught drunk driving, they chop your wife's hand off or something. I remember that. You know what I mean? So I go home and tell my wife to straighten up. You know what I mean? Or they're going to chop her hand off. So I don't. And as soon as the classes are over and and I don't have to attend AA meetings anymore, I don't go to not one single AA meeting. Not one. Once they cut me loose, I remember straightening up for about a week, kind of controlling it, just having a six-pack, and after you suffer a consequence, you kind of sober up for a minute, and then it wasn't long that it was back on, and I was drinking, and like I said, I was having a good time, man. I was really enjoying myself, or thought I was, at the time. So then, life happens, and let's see, I do what my mom and dad taught me to do. You know what I mean? I go to work, I come home, I pay the bills, and I can remember in high school doing this little time capsule on where you want to be and where you see yourself in 10 years. And it wasn't nothing major, man. I just wanted to have my own family and have my own house and have my own construction company. And, that's pretty much what happened to me. I ended up moving to Sacramento and buying a house, and getting married. And everything was cool. And then I get my second DUI. This time I get it for driving under the combined influence, and it was like, if it would have been like another 2 months, my first DUI would have been off my record, right? So, and thank God it wasn't, man, because I definitely needed the bigger slap. Definitely needed the bigger slap. So I get my second DUI, and now I'm back in Alcoholics Anonymous. I got to do more meetings this time, and more classes, and so that's what I do. And this time the only thing I heard was, if you drink too much whiskey too fast, they'll cut your esophagus out, right? And I'm like, wow. And so he's the one of the instructors telling this story about how this guy gets his esophagus cut out, and his wife kills him by giving him a whiskey enema. And I'm thinking, oh my God, who am I going to get to give me this enema? No. But that's all I heard. I didn't hear anything at all about get a sponsor, work the steps, get a higher power, be of service. I didn't hear anything like that. I just heard the war stories again and again, So at this DUI, the charges were a little more severe. So they put me on an ankle bracelet for 100 days. And they start testing me like 3 times a week for alcohol. They actually hooked up a breathalyzer in my house, hooked it up to my phone. This big, huge thing that I used to have to pick up when the alarm would go off. I'd have to pick it up and say my name a bunch of times till it knew it was me, and then blow into this thing, right? So there's no possible way whatsoever of me even having one beer. And so I do 100 days sober. Wow, my life gets better. My job gets better. I'm like window shopping at the mall and doing all this weird stuff, and things actually got better, especially at my place of employment, because when you drink, when you make your lunch in the morning and you're fitting as many cold beers as you can in your cooler, and there's like this much space for ice, you put a little bit of ice in there, and that was all day. I drank all day, every day, all day long. And so when I do this 100 days sober, man, I'm like, wow, look at all this work I'm getting done. It's like 10 times the amount of work, and my employer's like really pleased with me, and he's like having conversations with me now rather than just not making eye contact with me, and things got better. So they cut the ankle bracelet off. Man, 24-ounce can of beer sounds good right now. And like I said before, you suffer a hard consequence. You quit for a little while or straighten up for a little bit, and that's what I did. I straightened up for a little bit, had that 24-ounce beer, and it wasn't too much longer. It was way worse than ever before. And I could remember that, and all I kept thinking about was being sober that 100 days, and how good my life was, and how I needed to quit. I was killing myself. I had to quit. I had to quit. And nobody ever in my life, man, ever really told me, hey, man, you might have a problem with alcohol. Because I knew it. You know what I mean? I knew I had to quit. I knew I was killing myself. I knew it was horrible. And so there I was, and it cost me my marriage for sure. You know, both of us were drinking heavily and you know, just doing some bad things. I don't want to get into that stuff though. But anyhow, so I leave Sacramento. Me and my wife split up. I leave Sacramento and I go to my cousin's house in Middletown. And he's got a hollowed out Aerostream trailer, man. And it's the middle of summer. And there's no shade trees, man. So this thing is like a Coors Light can right in the middle of the sun in Middletown, right? And I'm in there drinking whiskey and beer and just killing myself, man. And I can remember opening the door going, oh my God. You know, and I think I might have had a fan in there blowing hot air on me. And it was horrible, man. It was horrible. And so then my dad ends up getting sick, and I used that as the big excuse to move back in with my parents. And my mother is the worst codependent person in the whole wide world, man. She'd do anything for her baby boy, right? She's happy that I'm back there no matter what shape I'm in. So I use this big thing. I'm going to take care of my dad. You know, I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to go take care of my dad. And in all actuality, man, I can't even take care of myself. You know, they were getting ready to remove the pig valve and put like an artificial valve in there, and they had trouble when they were cleaning his arteries before the surgery. They were cleaning his arteries out, and the bridge collapsed for a couple minutes, and he had a really bad stroke. And so he was like half paralyzed, and you know, I could remember shaving him a few times, you know, and helping him go to the bathroom and stuff. But I can also remember that it was always a hassle. You know what I mean? It's like, damn it, I got to get up and help him to the bathroom. Damn it, I got to get up and shave him, you know. And I just wanted to be left alone in my room so I could drink. And when the phone would ring, I would cringe. You know, I didn't want anything to do with anybody, man. And I kept telling myself, man, you got to stop this. You got to stop this every day. But the first thing I would do is I would take a big drink and I'd say, okay, tomorrow's going to be the day. But I might, you know, like it says in the big book, I might as well get good and drunk today because I've already started. And that went on for a long time, man. A lot of years, man. And then I don't know what happened on this day. But prior to this day, I used to have this friend that would come over to my house, and he would visit me every once in a while. And he was always in a good mood. And he'd give me a big hug, and he'd say, hey, brother, how you doing, man? How's life going? You know, and I would throw the big fakes. Oh yeah, I got this big job coming up, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, while I'm sitting in the garage with the beer bottles and the whiskey bottles and the smoke barreling out of the bottom of the garage. And you know, he would stay for about, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes. You know, just long enough to say hello, and he would leave. So this day came, and I don't know what it made it any different than any other day, man. But I was done. I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't take that first shot of whiskey. And I picked the phone up. And I called that buddy that used to come visit me in the garage, man. And he just said, man, I've been waiting for your phone call. I've been waiting for you to call. And I said, yeah, man, I need some help. And he goes, good, I'm going to be there in the morning and pick you up. We're going to a meeting. So, like I said, man, and all the other connections with AA before, I knew it wasn't going to work. You know what I mean? As soon as they cut me loose, I knew I was going to drink again. So he picks me up that morning, and we went to Shenate on a Sunday. And this woman was speaking up there. and I announced myself as a newcomer, and I waited until she was done sharing, and then I got up and left. And as I was walking out, man, I was saying to myself, this ain't gonna work for me, man. I feel uncomfortable here. It's just not gonna work. I'm gonna have to find another way to kick this problem. So then this old guy that I hadn't a clue who he was, right? He comes outside and he hands me this book right here, and he opens it to this page, and he starts off first by telling me, what if I told you that alcohol wasn't the problem? It was just a symptom of your problem. And he kind of got my attention a little bit, and then he read this to me. He said, men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. The sensation is so elusive that while they admit it is injurious, they cannot, after a time, differentiate the true from the false. To them, their alcoholic life seems to be the only normal one. They are restless, irritable, and discontented. And as soon as he said those three words, I got goosebumps right now. I knew that this place had the solution for what was wrong with me, because I was irritable, restless, and discontented my whole life. And it totally made sense, and the light went off, and I said, okay, I'm going to give this thing a shot, man. And I remember going back into the meeting and saying the Lord's Prayer and finishing the meeting. And then, I asked that guy that came into my garage to be my sponsor, and he told me he couldn't, that we were too close of friends, that I needed to find somebody else. So the guy that gave me this book, man, he was the only other person I knew in AA at the time. So I called him, man, and hooked up with this guy, and man, my life is just so full now. So, the first couple weeks I got this anxiety thing going, and I'm still smoking a little bit, right? And he goes, and I remember him being very, very clear and very stern about this. He said it has to be absolute abstinence, or else I can't work with you. And then I got it. And then, my life today is so full. He took me on a journey that connected me with a higher power that has just changed my whole life. I get up every morning. I don't meditate all that great, but I do say my prayers. And I got it, So when I first started praying, it was a third step prayer, right? And I would just kind of say it. And then somebody at the meeting said, you better pay attention to what you're praying, right? So then I said, oh, maybe I better pay attention to the words I'm saying, right? So I start doing that, right? So, and then I'm like, wow, that makes sense. So a couple months go by, and I incorporate the seventh step prayer, right? Please remove all my defective characters. You better be careful what you pray for. You better know what you're saying. Because, I had some ego problems that got grounded really, really quick. Really, really quick, man. So I just thank God for the journey that I got to go on, to get sober. And welcome to all the newcomers that are here tonight, man, and the people that got their birthday chips. I can remember 5 months. I can remember 7 months. I remember my first year was awesome. I remember my second year was awesome, and I hope I get to know what my 14th year is like, man, because in these rooms, man, I have found the solution to my life's problems. Thank you very much.